Welcome to Wine Spot, the podcast where we uncork the world of wines, one bottle at a time. I'm your host, Katarina. I'm here today with Monica Dubar. So, you're originally from Denver and now you're in the Cayman Islands. How did that happen?
Definitely. Actually, originally a native of Michigan.
Okay.
And really, as soon as I kind of could leave my hometown, I truly took my dreams west, and I never looked back. I lived in Colorado for a little over 20 years prior to the opportunity to come run the beverage program for the Ritz-Carlton here in Grand Cayman.
That's good, yeah. So you like it in Cayman so far? The wine scene, the whole Ritz-Carlton, you like it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a huge resort. The island's beautiful. And the people are as well. And what I really enjoy about the connections here is really within the beverage community. On the wine side, but also on the spirit side, there's really a lot of trendsetters here that are truly making this island, this iconic kind of culture to where really people tend to follow us. They tend to kind of follow our lead as well. And we're really doing some spectacular things when a lot of us aren't necessarily from here. We're from other parts of the world. But really what we're bringing here is the kind of the idealism of really the great items from the place of where we're originally from. And we're really, as a collective, making this place an amazing spot.
So you think even though Cayman is quite isolated by itself in the ocean, it's not isolated in the wide world?
No, not whatsoever. I mean, being very, very close to the U.S., it's also the guests that travel, here to Cayman, but also live here. I mean, for them, they're the ones that are asking for the products and the services that are a little bit more elevated. So really, hats go off to them for really understanding truly what some of the beverage experts here on island are really trying to do.
So speaking of the guests, what do you think is the biggest difference working in the industry here compared to the U.S.?
Definitely. Well, in the U.S., I worked at a business hotel where a lot of times it was more about kind of the business and, you were part of that experience, but, to take guests that are completely on vacation and they want to unwind and they really want to kind of disconnect. What I find here on the island and what I find on the resort is that they truly allow themselves to be ours in every aspect. And so the curation from a worldly wine list to the experiences that they want to hear, the iconic stories, the exclusivity that they want to find when they come to the island and they find the first growth from the world. And they're so surprised when they look at the wine list that we have such a worldly expanded list for them to really have a journey. And we're on this small island just south of Cuba.
It's very interesting. So you think there's a favorite wine of the guests? Is there a favorite that gets ordered a lot, or?
Definitely, I would say not necessarily maybe one specific maybe varietal or producer per se, but if there's maybe one style of wine that guests can't seem to get enough of, I think it's champagne.
Yeah, the classic.
Absolutely, yeah. And and high-end top producers as well. When guests are actually asking for that. I feel that the guests that come here, when they're looking for that bottle of champagne, it is celebratory, but also it's about rewarding themselves, to come on vacation and to reward themselves for this time away, this time to decompress and just kind of tuck into their own thoughts. Champagne, it seems like it kind of smooths all their worries really right away. I think that's kind of one common thread that I find that guests will really, really kind of seek toward. So I've really kind of thrived myself on building a very strong portfolio when it comes to a diversity of fine champagne.
So what's your favorite?
If we're allowed to say that. Yeah. I mean, if I had the pocketbook for it, so on all day. But I would say for me, if I were to kind of, take you a birthday present or take you something that I wanted to be memorable, but nothing so over the extreme where it wouldn't be attainable for myself, I would have to throw out Charles Heidsieck. Okay. A bit of history kind of really goes back to it as well. But being family-owned, really, from that, they just take, I think, a lot of care or a lot of attention to detail and really kind of hone in on our common thread of the ethos of the company itself. And year after year, it's very consistent, and it always over-delivers and never disappoints. And this year, they actually released, I believe for the 5th time, their Charles, Champagne Charlie, which this year it scored 100 points.
Wow.
A perfect point. Wow. Champagne with that.
So speaking of champagne and what you recently learned more about or get yourself into more about, is there any wine that's particularly close to your heart, any region, any country?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being from the U.S., right? I would always like to say that Moving wines are kind of my thing, and definitely for the longest time they were. But for me, the more that you drink, I think that your palate kind of needs a little bit of refreshness, and it doesn't tend to lean kind of toward more of those kind of over the top wines. So I feel like over the last 5 to 7 years, I've really started to retract my palate into wanting viscosity and really kind of honing in on a little bit more of that finesse. So when I think of maybe New World wines, or specifically coming out of the U.S., I think of historic vineyards. I think of vineyards that have been around for a while. I think of, vineyards and wineries that can have age-worthy wines. I would say Ridge is one that really kind of stands out for me when I think of American wines. When I think of one of the grapes that is an American first growth, I think of Ridge. I was able to go out on a sommelier trip with Ridge, and I believe there was 12 of us that were chosen out of the world. And I went there, and I was so blown away by the way that they can age their wine and what a library that they have. And I think it goes back to a testament of the team together. We don't really see a high turnover over at Ridge. The team that's been there really has been there since truly day one. And they've really been able to connect with the limestone soils there. They've been able to connect through the story, and they've been able to just kind of make it just a little better each year to truly, really understand that. And trying their wines from, and trying the verticals and really trying the wines side by side, you're really able to pick up on the subtle nuances of vintage and, how they can kind of, vary from year to year and really, truly what that means. But to have an American wine with such grace and elegant, yet it's still definitely rich and robust and, full of life, but yet they really don't necessarily start to really kind of come in their own till 10, 15. I mean, I've had Ridge 30 plus years old, and I was truly blown away. And I've even done blind tasting with guests. I'll do old world versus new world, and I'll do vibrant wines in their youthful state versus wines that have had, 10, 15, even 20 years. And there's been a few times where I put Ridge in the lineup, and not once has anyone ever picked Ridge as a new world wine. It just has this kind of common theme and this age-worthiness that I love to talk about.
Well, we picked an old one today. Yeah, we got a Chablis from Christian Moreau. Speaking of Chablis, your last name's French originally, you mentioned earlier. So
yes, the last name is Dubar. The origin comes from the name Joubert. But as many individuals that come from Europe and they come into the U.S., a lot of times that name was kind of chopped up and changed a little bit Americanized. That's exactly it. So Dubar is the American version of the Joubert.
Okay, so that's what started you into wine, the whole French culture, or is it what started you into wine?
I think a little bit of both. But really my love for hospitality and the art of hospitality, really being in hotels all my life, kind of even going back to my degree in hospitality. I was a little more on the finance side, kind of the room side of it for the kind of the first part of that. And I really connected right away with the food and beverage team. The connection and the stories that they would be able to share with me, and the way that their day was so different than mine, I always was so attracted to that. And for me, it's all about the connection with the guests. That's truly why I'm in this business. And so I really had a chance to possibly get on the food and beverage side of it. And I took that chance. And I truly haven't really looked back. And it was really through wine that I thought, oh, it's actually through this connection that really enlivens my energy and my spirit. So let's really start to kind of study wine and study the history and the anthropology behind that, and to really kind of understand how this bottle is here today with us. It's that connection and that authentic narrative and that authentic storytelling that I'm able to continue on a dining room floor. And the song and dance that you can really capture and deliver through a dining experience is really so unique, and I've just truly embraced it in my own.
So was there somebody along your way, person that maybe brought you on that path or inspired you particularly, or?
Definitely, yeah. I would say I've had a lot of mentors and a lot of inspiration from not only of mentors, but I think it's very important that you really build relationships with the suppliers. You know, you really build relationships with the wineries. You build relationships as a mentor, so that way then the individuals who you were inspiring, you keep you keep that common ground that you have to always develop yourself, so they continue to learn. So I think it kind of really becomes really full circle. But I've had a few great managers to really within the Ritz-Carlton brand to really kind of give me that platform to really shine and to kind of figure out my own, to maybe not necessarily have all the answers, but you kind of grow into your position. And I think really kind of through all of that, including school, really is just kind of integrated into where I am today.
Very interesting. So back to the very beginning. So what's your first thing to start with wine? Did you do a class like at WSET, or did you do, like, how do you start? If I want to start today, how do I start?
Well, how I started was I was working in hotels, and I had a chef, and his wife was actually a general manager and sommelier at an Italian restaurant, 100% Italian wine list. And up until that point, maybe I had tried a Chianti Classico, maybe a Rosso di Montalcino, but Italian wines were definitely not my forte. But I had this passion for people and connections, and I was very disciplined into learning. And so my chef said, I really think that I really want to connect you two. And maybe in fact, maybe you get a part-time job over there and maybe kind of see where that goes. That part-time job ended up leading in a full-time job, and that's really where it all kind of started for me. Was there, I opened up this wine list, and inside was 100% of Italian wine list. And as much as I was terrified to really open that list, one guest would say, "Can I look at your wine list?" I was a bit, kind of intimidated by that. I don't have the California cabs to kind of fall back on, and what I really knew. And so I found a boutique wine school in Denver, Colorado, the International Wine School. And really through that platform, it was a true school. It was a part of Metro State University. And that's truly where I started when I kind of became my full formal education, was actually going in and sitting in a classroom style that you would be then surrounded by other students, by, other professors, and you actually had somewhere to go that, could keep you accountable. And I think that was really good for me to really start to get kind of back into the classroom style of things, and to going back to basic book work. And then, I did that for a few years with the Wine Guild. And then I really wanted to get serious with that. And then they do have a Masters of Wine program. And so the school ended up getting their own space within a winery. And really it was through that I could go and help with harvest. I could really understand how the winemaking process was really done. And it was brought on such a small scale, but I was able to really thoroughly understand that. So I think that was really kind of the eye-opening experience for me to really kind of understand that. And so through the Wine Guild, I was able to test out as a master's candidate, meaning that I passed my blind, doing 6 blind wines, including vintage, method of production, brew varietal, of course, and pretty much everything about the wine. And I was able to nail 6 out of the 6 wines. So, wow, I think it's acceptable, and phenomenal success really through that. And they had a great community within Denver, within Colorado, and really within the U.S. And so I was able to connect with them. But then really past that, I started to kind of go through, the Somm Journal, of really signing up through the Somm Journal and understanding and watching all of, the videos through them and really just ensuring that I was dedicated to my studies. Because as you know, every vintage changes and that happens every year. So as much as we know this wine for being from 21, next year that wine's going to change and we have to know why. We have to understand the terroir and to be always kind of focused on these studies and always understand that you're going to be a forever student. I think that really kind of set me apart because every day I learned something new, and in return I try to teach those around me. In return, but then also being able to be selected for sommelier studies of from Ridge to Pinot Camp to Domaine Serene. I mean, I could kind of continue to go on where wineries and suppliers really spent the time to work with me, to develop me, to help me develop the programs that I was associated with.
Yeah, that's good. It's a credit to the people you met along the way.
Yeah, of course.
So is there any, because you mentioned your early days and seeing the wine list and getting a bit nervous, is there any funny stories you can share with us that happened back then?
Yeah, of course. I would say, I'll point out one, of course, champagne. I just absolutely love it. And there was a grandmother and her daughter had just finished medical school. And she came in and I could really tell that she wanted the night to be special. So she said, what wine should we drink? And I said, well, it's celebratory wine. I can only really think of one wine, and it really was to be a champagne. And she said, great, my granddaughter loves champagne. Fantastic. Do you know of any champagnes that maybe she's ever had? And she says, oh, she typically likes the pink one. Okay, which great, rosé. Okay, so let's hone in on rosé. And I said, okay, well, we're celebrating tonight. I actually had a vintage Dom Perignon rosé. And she absolutely went for it. And so I go back to, and I was actually so excited, not just for the grandma, because she was celebrating herself, but also for the granddaughter that didn't necessarily even know of the night that was going to be in front of her. And so I go back to the cellar and, it was in the cold refrigerator. So, I had everything to temperature. And so usually, we don't really run into many opportunities when it comes to temperature. So I get back out to the table and I present the wine. She was very excited about it, and I open it table side. And of course, for some reason, and you always open it at 45 degrees. I opened the wine and I went to go kind of put it back parallel. And believe it or not, and there probably was about 2-3 seconds that was in between that, this rosé champagne went everywhere. In fact, it went to the tip of my glasses, so my glass was like raised up all the way. And of course, I have nothing but Dom all over my face, and they are just completely laughing. They had a great sense of humor, and I knew it was real, but it definitely was a bit humorous, but also a bit embarrassing. But of course, working at the Ritz-Carlton, and you are a lady of the Ritz-Carlton, you know how to kind of shake that off just a little bit. And so I was able to kind of play it gently, clean myself up, and I was able to absolutely still present that to the guests. Yeah. So as that was the last model that we had in such a rare and an iconic label. Yeah.
No, and having such great guests, they took it there well. Well, speaking of wine trends earlier, is there any particular trends you think wine is going to go in the next few years? What do you think?
Yes, I think for me, a big trend when it comes to, pairing, I really look at alcohol content. I know that maybe years ago, a lot of individuals really kind of looked toward those 100-point wines that were so over the top and so in your face and so rich. But now what I really find is people are really starting to kind of dial that back just a little bit. They're asking for wines that, the mirror of itself, that's the star of the plate. As much as I want it to be the wine, we still have to understand the artistry behind the chef. and the cuisine. And so for me, I'm always trying to highlight that. And with wines that are so over the top that maybe overstate the dish, I really look toward wines that are a little bit lower in alcohol, that are a little lower in viscosity, that are a little bit more traditionally made. And I think that those are where the trends are going when it comes to consumers asking for the same. You're able to see that in cocktails, low and no ABV, but you're really starting to kind of see that a little bit more into the love for wine. And when, I can give a guest 2 samples of a wine that might be paired with their food, what I'm finding now is a lot of times they are going toward the more traditional side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you think, so that's the future. How do you think the past, especially speaking about COVID, has changed the wine industry, maybe even the wine list? What do you have on your...
Great question. I think, for COVID, it gave us a lot of time to be in the house and a lot of time to make our own cuisine, to be our own server, to be our own sommelier, to be our own mixologist. And we kind of found a new passion through that. I know I can say the same for my friends aren't even necessarily in the industry. We would have happy hour. They would make their own cocktails. They would really start to kind of pair their own wines really with that. And so for me, I feel that, we're a little bit more connected to our food chain. And I think that you're really starting for consumers to ask for biodynamic and organic products and really what that really means. Biodynamic farming really was maybe a term that we would use obviously to describe agriculture, but it was more of a term internally. You didn't necessarily kind of find that to be more of a mainstream term. And now you really are finding that to be a mainstream term. And I think that out of COVID, it gave people time to really kind of think of really what they wanted. And I think that was one positive thing that really kind of came out of that people are finding it and they're asking for that. And it's really a top of their list of importance.
Now we've been speaking about wine and food pairing quite a bit. Is there a certain favorite for you to go with each other, like chianti and pizza, or is there something that's like the perfect pairing for you?
Yeah, of course. I'm a huge lobster fan. I have to say, and like crab. So for me, lobster, crab, Chablis, Chardonnay, that's, more on that traditionally side made. Those tend to kind of be some of my favorite pairings where it makes me sit down and savor my meal. Working with restaurants, as you can imagine, I eat kind of on the go. It's always kind of a rush, but I feel like that pairing is one that I really look forward to, and I kind of savor the meal.
Okay. Yeah. So Monica, I have a few questions for you that our viewers would like to know.
Of course.
One of them being, what challenges do you face as a sommelier in Grand Cayman, and how do you overcome them?
Great question. I think, accessibility to products, when we're not that far from, say, a major market as Florida, Miami, where, they really do have the best. And, of course, they get some of the best allocations of the world. We're kind of a small island. And as much as we're growing, sometimes the products don't necessarily grow as fast as we would like them to be. So understanding that we might sometimes have to directly source and really what that means. And that's kind of where relationships come back in, that a relationship where you may have had in the past might actually help you to today of being able to bring some of these products on island and to really build awareness within the community of wines that they've never seen.
Another question we had that we kind of got into a little bit earlier already was, what would you recommend for somebody who wants to extend their palate? How would they do that?
Definitely. I think to understanding the aromas of wine, I think for me, how I really was able to get my first start is when I would go grocery shopping. I really took my time through the produce section.
Okay.
And I would really kind of touch everything and I would smell it. And in the beginning, I brought a lot of fruits in, and I bought a lot of different herbs, and I would actually chop them up and I would put them in a glass, and I would kind of get those aromas to be a little bit more familiar. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of one way that you can start to kind of memorize the subtle nuances of the aromas. And then for me, I really started working my palate and really developing my palate, starting a little bit lighter, a little bit more approachable. say maybe a Pinot Noir, right? Might be kind of a good red to kind of start out with, right? Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, things like that, that may not necessarily have a lot of introduction of oak, but just might be, typicity of what the grape varietal is, of just kind of understanding the fruit structure. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when you kind of understand Pinot Noir, you understand the red fruits. You understand there might be a little bit of spice kind of with that. And then you might be starting to kind of understand a little bit more of those tannins. But then we start to just kind of develop a little bit more on each one of those varietals, and they become a little bit more profound, so your palate can just get a little bit more acclimated. But for me, what you smell is truly a lot of times what you taste and what transcends onto your palate and what transcends onto the plate as well. So for me, nose is everything.
That's very interesting. Yeah, a lot of times I hear from people from different regions in the world, they smell different foods because they might be used to other foods that, you're from there and they're from here, and everybody has different foods and smells different things. It makes a lot of sense what you're saying, to smell fruits, enhance your palate.
Exactly, especially here, with all the different nations that we're able to attract. I work with a lot of Filipinos and Indians, and they're able to they're able to share their experience with me. And I really, as much as they listen to me, I really listen to them as well, because they tell me about a fruit that I've never even heard of. And then they describe it to me. And of course, it is within that family. It's not just necessarily on this side of the world. So equally, I learned so much by just being surrounded by such an international place. That's one reason why I love Cayman so much.
And lastly, could you share a memorable wine-related story or experience from your time at the Ritz-Carlton in Cayman?
Many stories working for the Ritz-Carlton, right? For us, it's all about leaving indelible marks really with our guests. And I think that's really what sets the Ritz-Carlton apart from any other hotel company out there. So for me, and through beverage, it's all about exclusivity. And, I have so many stories to share, but I'll share one from this weekend, actually. Just so happened, Blue by Eric Repair, I took a picture of all the bottles that I served over the night, and I put them all together. I typically don't do this, but I just so happened to have an 84 Mouton, a 2011 Ridge, a 95 Chateau Latour, Ornellaia. We had a bottle of, P2, and to have that on a dining room table within one night of service, and for me to not only be able to service our guests that, right, but for me to be able to imprint the subtle nuances of these wines, it's remarkable that I'm able to do that. When you talk about education, working on the floor and being able to taste these wines in their perfect spot, there's no school in the world that could teach you that. It really has to do with hands-on, and Saturday night was a remembrance of that. And it really brought up gratitude that I have for the company and for the restaurant, that it's eye-opening that I'm able to really imprint. As you could imagine, you wouldn't be able to get all those wines in your entire life, but to try them side by side within a 3-hour span is just absolutely, it's truly remarkable.
It's a very impressive story. It is. Well, sadly, we've come to an end for today. And, well, thank you for coming, Monica.
Catalina, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no long tail. It was really good. And don't forget to like, follow, share, all of it. And see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.